Circus Day at Merryvale by Hale Burnett. Chapter 4. The Boys Attend the Circus. When Chuck and Toad reached the corner of Elmwood Street, they saw before them a small group of boys. "That looks like Herbie with the others. Maybe we won't have to go all the way over to his house after all," cried Chuck. "Oh, Herbie!" called out Toad, and as the other boys turned towards him, he added, "Yes, it is he." "Are you going to take me to the circus, Toad?" asked Herbie, as Toad and Chuck drew near. "Reddy said you thought you might." "Yes, I am, because you bought my rabbit," replied Toad. "Oh, goody!" laughed Herbie, throwing his cap in the air. "I was afraid I wasn't going." "Come on, boys, let's hurry. We want to get good seats," cried Chuck, starting off. "Oh, we've got lots of time," said one of the boys. He was Reddy's brother and nicknamed Fat. "You fellows will make me thin walking so fast." Fat's a water rat with 50 bullets in his hat," sang out Toad, running ahead. "You can't catch me before we get to the tent." Of course, Fat took the dare, and the chase began. Toad, who was well in front, knew he could outrun him, but fortune favored Fat, for as Toad ran across the grass, not far from the tent, he tripped over a tent rope and fell headlong to the ground. The bag of cookies falling out of his hand, Fat, seeing his chance, pounced down, not upon Toad, but on the bag. He loved all sweets, and cookies were very dear to his heart. When Toad looked up, wondering why Fat hadn't jumped on him, he saw him smilingly eating a cookie. "Aw, Fat, give them back." "That's not fair," cried Toad. "I'll give you some after a while, honest Injun." "Oh, will you?" asked Fat sweetly. "Maybe I'll give you one if you're a good little boy and behave yourself." Then as Toad made a grab for the bag, he added, "No, Toady dear, I'll carry them." And Toad had to laugh with the others, for Fat looked so funny, grinning and bowing with his mouth full of cookie. When they entered the tent, Reddy and Toad wondered what happened, for all was so very different from the morning. The seats were all up and the rings were in place. They had again the same feeling of being very small. "Wonder where all the elephants have gone and where all the seats came from," said Reddy. "Where will we sit?" asked Chuck. "Let's get in the front row," said Toad. "No, that's no good. Let's sit up high so we can see more," cried Fat, who really didn't want to be too near the lion's cage. "But we can't have any fun with the clowns if we're not in front," said Toad. "Yes," agreed all the others. "That's right." And so they chose 5 seats in the first row, about the middle of the tent. "This is great," cried Herbie. "I've got 10 cents, so I'll buy peanuts for the crowd." "I'll get popcorn balls," said Toad. "How soon do you suppose it's going to begin?" asked Fat. "I knew there was no hurry." "Oh, any minute now. There are so many people coming in," said Herbie. "Well, it can't start any too soon to please me," cried Toad. Suddenly there was a blare of trumpets, and then the band commenced to play "Away Down South in Dixie." "That's a fine band," said Fat. "It always makes me feel kind of shivery down my back when I hear band music." "You'd have felt shivery this morning if you had had the job we did," laughed Toad. "Don't see how Fat could feel shivery with so much fat on his bones," giggled Reddy. "Here they come! Here come the elephants!" cried Herbie. "That's the biggest one leading!" "Oh, oh, oh!" laughed Reddy. "Look at the monkey dressed up like a dancer on his back!" When the procession reached the boys, Chuck held out some peanuts, and the leader, seeing them, stopped and reached out his trunk, took them from Chuck's hand, after which he walked on slowly. This delighted Chuck, so he kept some in his pockets to feed the elephants after the show. The fat lady, the thin man, the only living giant, and the smallest woman in the world followed next. Chuck said he'd bet that the giant could carry the little lady in his pocket like Dad had brought Rover home when he was a little pup. "Guess he could," cried Toad. "Looks like he could carry most anything." When the lady with the short, fluffy pink skirts, all covered with spangles, came along, sitting on a big white horse, she smiled at everyone and blew the boys a kiss from her fingertips. "That's for you, Fat," said Chuck. "She looked at you." "Did not," answered Fat, turning so red that all the others laughed. "She thinks you're such a pretty boy," said Herbie. Just then the clowns came by, and one of them, dressed as a huge fat baby with a nursing bottle tied to a ribbon about its neck, was crying, "Boo-hoo-hoo! I want my kitty!" The kitty was a clown dressed to look like a big black cat. He walked on his hands and feet, and a long black tail bobbed up and down behind him. He would let the baby get just so near and then bound away. At that, the baby would cry again. Herbie laughed until his sides ached, for the baby made such funny dives after the cat that he would sometimes fall flat. Then the other clowns would run over and help him to his feet.